Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth episode of Coherent Coder. This video is going to be a continuation of the previous one. So we are going to start from where we stopped in the previous video. So let's roll that intro. So before we discuss about the scanf statement, let's remove this. Let's remove this. So basically we are removing all the assignments because we do not require them anymore. Okay, so now we are going to get input from the user enters. Okay, so for example, if you go to an ATM, right, if you go to an ATM and you try to withdraw some money, then it will ask you how much money you want to withdraw, right? So you enter some amount, right, and then you click on enter, then it will get you that much amount. Okay, it will not tell you that this is the predefined amount. You can either withdraw 100 or you can either withdraw 500 or you can either withdraw 1000. It will not tell you like that, right? It will ask you how much money you want. Okay, in a similar way we are going to get input from the user. So basically whatever the user enters, we will store that and we will display that. Okay, so now I'm going to write a scanf statement. So to write scanf statement, you have to write scanf, and similar to printf, you have to open brackets, and in this bracket you have to put double quotes. Okay, so in this double quotes you have to give the format specifier for the value that you want to get as input from the user. For example, if I want the user to enter an integer value, right, and I want to store it in an integer variable, in that case I will put percentile d here. This means I am asking the user to enter an integer value. Then I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'm going to give a space, and then I'm going to put the variable name here. But for scanf statements, you cannot directly put the variable name and expect it to work. So the difference is that in printf statements, we have to display the value of the variable on the screen. Okay, and that's it. Our work is done. But for scanf statement, it needs to know where the value that we are getting from the user has to be stored. So if you just give the variable name here, then what will happen is it will only get the value of this variable. But what we need is the address of this variable. So to get the address of this variable, we have to use the AND symbol. So what this will do is it will fetch the address of the variable after it. So if you put AND before a variable name, then it will find out the address of this variable where its memory is allocated, and that address will be given to the scanf function. Okay, and then scanf will use it and store the value there, and that is how we will get the value entered by the user and print it on the screen. Okay, so now that we know this, let's compile this. We see 0 errors and warnings, then we run the code. Okay, so now you see that we have a blank screen. So you might be wondering, why do we have a blank screen? Because we have a printf statement which is supposed to be printed on the screen, right? It is because of the scanf statement. So why, you might think? So if you read here, it says get input from the user. So that means scanf statement is trying to get an input from the user, and it is waiting for us to give that input. And that is the reason you are not seeing anything on the screen. So let's say if I give an integer value which is 45, right, and I click on enter. So you see that it is displaying the int value is 45. So if you run it again, And if you give a value of 89 and click on enter, it will display that value. So that means it is fetching the input from us and then it is displaying it. Okay, so this is how scanf statement works. So now let's try to scan all the other variables as well. So I'm going to say scanf, I'm going to open brackets, double quotes, and then I'm going to say percentile f, and then here I'm going to put an ampersand and symbol, and I'm going to give the variable name which is f. Then I'm going to put semicolon here. In a similar way, I'm going to do for double percentile lf, then I'm going to put a comma, then I'm going to put and, then I'm going to put d. Okay, then I'm going to scan character variable. So I'm going to put percentile c here, put a comma, put and symbol, and put the variable name. Okay, now that we are scanning all the values, it's time for us to print them as well. So I'm going to copy this entire thing, then paste it here, then I will change this to percentile f and then f. That means we are displaying the float value. Then I'm going to paste it here again, then I'm going to change this to ld, which is format specifier for double. I'm going to put d here, then I'm going to copy paste here again, and then I'm going to change this to percentile c, which is the format specifier for character, and I'm going to put c here. Then I'm going to change this as well. So this is the float value, this is the double value, and this is the character value. Okay, so now that we have everything ready, let's compile this and run the code. Okay, so now it's waiting for input from us. So let's give it some inputs. So I'm going to say 25. Then I'm going to give a float value which is 10.56 and then click on enter. So you have to remember this, that when you are supposed to provide multiple values, that means if you have multiple scanf statements, then to provide all these values, you have to provide a value, then click on enter, and then provide the next value, then click on enter again. Okay, and that is how it will fetch each and every value and store it in the variables. Okay, so remember that, don't forget to click on enter after providing one value. Okay, so now next I am going to provide double value. Now you see that although we are displaying all the other values, the character value is not being displayed, right? So you might be wondering why that is the case. The issue is that after we provide the double value and we click on enter, right? So that enter key in itself is a character. So if you remember, I told you that all the keys on your keyboard have an ASCII value, right? So it treats every key on your keyboard as a separate character. Okay, and because of that, when we click on enter after providing the double value, it thinks that the enter key is the character value that we are supposed to provide, and it takes that value and it displays it on the screen. And since the enter value does not have anything that can be seen up by us properly, so we just see this empty space. Okay, so if we do not provide enter value, this line would have been here. Okay, and that is the issue. So to solve this, all we have to do is give a space here. So what happens is when you give a space here, it will fetch the first value that it gets and it will ignore that value. Okay, and then it will wait for the second character to be entered, and the second character will be taken and stored in the character variable. So now we compile the code and we run it. Okay, so now first I'm going to give value of 100 for int. Then I'm going to give a value of 10.23 for float and click on enter. Then I'm going to give a value of 1025.2365 and then click on enter. So now if you see, it is waiting for us to give an input for the character variable. Earlier it did not wait for us to do that. And that is because of the space that we provided in the scanf statement. Okay. So now we have to provide a value for character. So if you remember earlier, we used to give single quotes for character variables whenever we are assigning a character to a character variable. Okay, but in this case we do not need to put single quotes at all. That is because you are not assigning this value directly to a character variable. We are assigning this value through the scanf statement, so it takes care of all that. So you do not have to worry about putting single quotes in this case. So now I'm going to click on enter, and now you see that we are getting all these values. The int value is 100, the float value is 10.23. So if you see, the double value is something random, right? We did not notice this before, and that is because we forgot something here. That is, while displaying, we are displaying it as %ld but not %lf. So we have to make sure that we put the right format specifiers, otherwise we will get that garbage value. Okay, now we compile the code and we run it again. And now if you put the right values, 0.23, 1000.2548 and J. So now you see we get the right values on the screen. If you like this video, then leave a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like these, then subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon. Thank you and happy coding.